Hi guys, it's Kirsten with WVIA, and we hope you've enjoyed the programming today on VIA TV, and we hope you're enjoying the Learn at Home initiative that we've also launched to make learning fun and enjoyable right there at your own home. So today we're going to do a lesson on Native American poetry. Now, I was a teacher for 20 years, and one of the things that I taught frequently was about poetry. But today we're going to be really specific. We're going to talk about Native American poetry and some of the themes and issues that permeate that particular genre. So to do this, we're going to view some slides having to do with poetry. We're going to actually watch a poem, a visual representation of a poem, and then we're going to explore some ideas in poetry on our own. And then lastly, I have a special treat for you in anticipation for the show that you're about to watch at 3 o'clock, which is about the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with Native American poetry. Native American poetry is a very, very specific and very interesting genre. But first, we want to explore, as just a review, what poetry is. Poetry is a type of literature based on the interplay of words and rhythm. It often employs rhyme and meter. Meter is a set of rules governing the number and arrangement of syllables in each line. Now, when we think of poetry, we want to think about that idea of rhythm. So that's what really separates poetry from prose, or just the written word that we see in novels or even articles that you might see in a magazine. So that rhythm is best observed in terms of song. So you guys are probably fond of listening to the radio, and perhaps you're listening to pop music or country music, or even maybe you like rap. There's a specific rhythm when it comes to that genre of song. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about poetry. So it's words that create a rhythm. Think of, your favorite song. When you look at the lyrics, they're written very differently than if you were to open a book. There's shorter lines. There's more figurative language. So they're asking you in terms of metaphors, or they might give you some similes to think about themes. That's poetry. And so when we talk about poetry and we talk about rhythm, that's very unique in terms of that form of literature. Now, in poetry, words are strung together to form sounds, to form images, or to create ideas that might be too complex or perhaps more abstract to describe directly. Now, Native American poetry is very specific poetry written by the individuals of Native American culture. There's lots of different tribes. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But first, let's explore. The U.S. Poet Laureate, Joy Harjo, writes, "The literature of the Aboriginal people of North America." So when we say that, we're talking about Native Americans, people who are indigenous and have been here for centuries in America. But their poetry, their literature, defines America. It is not exotic. The concerns are particular, yet often universal, meaning that they apply to everyone. So universal, it's everybody in terms of concerns or themes experience them. Universal themes in Native American poetry include respect. Respect is a very, very important theme in Native American poetry. So for elders, for nature, respect for oneself, respect for the past. They also have a great deal of discussion about animals, spirituality, and of course, love. Now, the tribes of North America, I really like this this picture because it shows you all the different tribes of North America. And if you can see, we've got in, and I'm just going to use my hand to help, when we're talking about Wyoming, we're talking about this area right in here. And so the Cheyenne, the Shoshone Indians. I'm from northern Wisconsin. So when we talk about Wisconsin, and that's right over here, we're talking about the Ojibwe tribe. That's a very common tribe. We're going to talk about the Ojibwe Indians again later on in this lesson. But then we have here towards the south, we have Shawnee and Cherokee. Choctaw down here, the Seminole Indian tribe in Florida, and we have the Apache Indian tribes of the Southwest, and of course the Navajo as well. But as you can see, there's quite a few tribes, and it even extends all the way into Canada. But these tribes are all very unique. They have their own culture, their own traditions, and their own poetry. So when we talk about these universal themes, there's going to be universal themes that cover all of these tribes, but then we also have themes that are very specific. So for example, the Seminole Indian tribes are probably going to talk about rain and heat in their poetry in terms of setting. But if you're a Blackfoot tribe, a Crow tribe, or even the Ojibwe tribes up in the northern parts, then what we have there is the discussion of a setting that's much colder, more harsh. So again, we want to think about these themes as we go through poetry. But this is a great visual in terms of seeing where the different tribes are and how many there are. We've talked about Joy Harjo. She was appointed the new United States Poet Laureate in 2019. And she's born in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1951. Interestingly, she's a member of the Creek Nation. So she is herself Native American, and much of her poetry deals with those Native American themes. We're going to explore our first Native American poem by looking at Joy Harjo's poem called Remember. And remember, interestingly, the themes that we talked about that are consistent in Native American poetry. I think you'll notice here that when we talk about animals and we talk about nature and when we talk about respect for one's elders and respect for oneself, these were some of the themes that we had discussed as being universal and often present in Native American literature and Native American poetry, and you will see them here in this poem as well. So let's get started with Remember by Joy Harjo. Okay, as we begin this poem, I want you to think about a couple of things first. In addition, of course, to the themes that we want to point out, we also want to think about how we read poetry. Now, you want to pay very close attention to the lines, but also the punctuation. So when I'm reading, if there is end punctuation on a line of poetry, we respect that. If there's no punctuation, then we keep reading until the next line and the next piece of punctuation. So it creates a different feel, and that's part of the creation of rhythm as well. Remember by Joy Harjo. Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon. Know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and the giving away to night. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life, and her mother's, and hers. Remember your father. He is your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are, red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth. We are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life, who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them, listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind. Remember her voice. She knows the origin of the universe. Remember you are all people, and all people are you. Remember you are this universe, and this universe is you. Remember all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember language comes from this. Remember the dance language is that life is. remember. Now we want to explore, now that we've read that poem, what were some of the themes that existed in her poem, Remember? Take a moment to think about that. Now, some of the themes we've discussed were, of course, the respect for one's elders and the respect for individuals as well as ourselves. And it's important to consider, in terms of the poem, that the poet responded to those themes in terms of remember who you are, remember who you came from, remember who your parents were or are, remember what they gave up and what they did for you. And that idea of respect for one's elders and the past is very, very important to Native American culture. In addition, we see that nature is a theme that we explored in this poem. We explored the idea that nature is the earth, that we're all from the earth, whether the earth is red earth or yellow earth or black earth or white earth. It's kind of that symbolic representation of diversity, the idea that we're all from the earth, but we're all very different. And then, of course, we have the theme of respect also for the past and the idea that we must remember the past. It's important to always think about the past so that we can grow and be respectful and, of course, learn from our experiences. The next poem is actually a very famous poem that comes from a larger epic poem, and this is by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Now, Longfellow is a very famous poet. Now, if you're in a high school English class, I can guarantee you're going to meet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow at some point. And his Song of Hiawatha is derived from a grand epic poem, and that's entitled Hiawatha. Now, in the Song of Hiawatha, which is an excerpt, we have a young Native American boy questioning his natural surroundings, and his grandmother, Nokomis, answers his questions. So it's a neat discussion, a neat interplay between a child and his elder. And again, we're thinking of those themes. The epic, also the epic Hiawatha, the larger poem, epic poem, relates the fictional adventures of an Ojibwe warrior named Hiawatha and the tragedy of his love for Minnehaha. Now, she is a Dakota woman, so we have two different tribes going on there. And yes, it is a love story. It's a beautiful story that are set in the Pictured Rocks area on the south shore of Lake Superior. And when we hear the term Gitchagumi in the first line of the poem, that's actually the Indian term for Lake Superior. Interestingly enough, too, my father, when I was young, used to say, Kirsten, if you're ever in trouble, you just call me and say Gitchagumi, and I'll come in and help you, whatever is wrong. And so Gitchagumi was a word that my family knew quite well as in terms of our past. We also lived by Lake Superior, and we would often go on Lake Superior for family vacations. I will tell you that is a very cold lake. Probably, I think it is considered the coldest of all the Great Lakes, but wow, it's a really cold lake.
Here now is the story of Hiawatha's boyhood. By the shores of Gitchagumi, by the shining Big Sea water, stood the wigwam of Nokomis, daughter of the moon, Nokomis. Dark behind it rose the forest, rose the black and gloomy pine trees, rose the firs with cones upon them. Bright before it beat the water, beat the clear and sunny water, beat the shining big sea water. There the wrinkled old Nokomis nursed the little Hiawatha, rocked him in his linden cradle, bedded soft in moss and rushes, safely bound with reindeer sinews, stilled his fretful wail by saying, "Hush, the naked bear will hear thee," lulled him into slumber, singing, "Iwaye, my little owlet, who is this that lights the wigwam? With his great eyes lights the wigwam. Iwaye, my little owlet." Many things Nokomis taught him of the stars that shine in heaven. Showed him Ishkuda, the comet, Ishkuda with fiery tresses. Showed the death dance of the spirits, warriors with their plumes and war clubs, flaring far away to northward in the frosty nights of winter. Showed the broad white road in heaven, pathway of the ghosts, the shadows, running straight across the heavens, crowded with the ghosts, the shadows. At the door on summer evenings sat the little Hiawatha, heard the whispering of the pine trees, heard the lapping of the waters, sounds of music, words of wonder. "Minnewawa," said the pine trees. "Mudwayaushka," said the water. Saw the firefly, Wawatesi, flitting through the dusk of evening, with the twinkle of its candle lighting up the brakes and bushes. And he sang the song of children, sang the song Nokomis taught him. "Wawatesi, little firefly, little flitting white fire insect, little dancing white fire creature, light me with your little candle, ere upon my bed I lay me, ere in sleep I close my eyelids." Saw the moon rise from the water, rippling, rounding from the water. Saw the flecks and shadows on it. Whispered, "What is that, Nokomis?" And the good Nokomis answered, "Once a warrior, very angry, seized his grandmother and threw her up into the sky at midnight. Right against the moon he threw her. 'Tis her body that you see there." Saw the rainbow in the heaven, in the eastern sky, the rainbow. Whispered, "What is that, Nokomis?" And the good Nokomis answered, "'Tis the heaven of flowers you see there, all the wildflowers of the forest, all the lilies of the prairie. When on earth they fade and perish, blossom in that heaven above us." When he heard the owls at midnight, hooting, laughing in the forest, "What is that?" he cried in terror. "What is that?" he said. "Nokomis?" And the good Nokomis answered, "That is but the owl and owlet, talking in their native language, talking, scolding at each other." Then the little Hiawatha learned of every bird its language, learned their names and all their secrets, how they built their nests in summer, where they hid themselves in winter, talked with them whene'er he met them, called them Hiawatha's chickens. Of all beasts, he learned the language, learned their names and all their secrets. How the beavers built their lodges, where the squirrels hid their acorns, how the reindeer ran so swiftly, why the rabbit was so timid. Talked with them whene'er he met them, called them Hiawatha's brothers. Ye who love a nation's legends, love the ballads of a people, that the voices from afar off call to us to pause and listen. Speak in tones so plain and childlike, scarcely can the ear distinguish whether they are sung or spoken. Listen to this Indian legend, to this song of Hiawatha.
Now, I hope you enjoyed that poem. Again, that was The Song of Hiawatha by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And let's do some thinking about that particular poem as well. So first, I want you guys to imagine you're in a forest. So if you want to close your eyes, you certainly can do that. Or just imagine you're in a forest. What do you see? What animals are there? And then more importantly, why do you think that your scene that you've created is important? Now, I challenge you as an extension activity, and perhaps while you're watching Wind River at 3 o'clock, you can do this. Maybe draw what you see in terms of that forest view. And then perhaps you can think of the boy's questions to his grandmother, Nokomis, about nature and about his surroundings. And that is a big part of the draw and the lure of Hiawatha, as the Song of Hiawatha. So I hope you enjoyed that look at Native American poetry. It was brief, but it gives you a little bit of something to consider as you watch Wind River coming up at 3 o'clock. Don't forget to also go to PBS Learning Media and take a look at all resources that are connected to Wind River or Wyoming or poetry. And if you would like further information, you can go to our website at wvia.org, take a look at our Learn at Home initiative, and go to the schedule for today. You'll see that there are resources handpicked for you to extend your learning after watching Wind River. So again, we are so grateful that you have joined us for Learn at Home, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day and you come back and see us again tomorrow. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.